So, till now, we have discussed what and why part, and this topic is around how part. Let me explain what I meant by what, why, and how. So, till now, we have understood what we are practicing. We are practicing Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism. Why we are practicing? We are practicing to attain Buddhahood, that is, to attain Buddhahood, to attain absolute happiness. And faith, practice, and study is the means to get to the absolute happiness. So, whenever we complete what, why, and how, so we are actually closing the entire loop. So, when we know what we need to do, why we need to do, then the question comes, how should we do? And faith, practice, and studies are like a three pillars in Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism that ultimately helps you to get to the attainment of Buddhahood or to attain absolute happiness. So, Nichiren Daishonin says in one of the Goshos that exert yourself in two ways of practice and study. Without practice and study, there can be no Buddhism. You must not only persevere yourself, you must also teach others. Both practice and study arise from faith. Teach others to the best of your ability, even if it is only a single sentence or a phrase, right? So it is the heart that is most important. So if we really want to follow Buddhism, Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism, and to attain absolute happiness, then the task is really cut out. The task is to have a faith and then practice for oneself, practice for others, and also study about Buddhism, right? Without practice and study, there can be no Buddhism. So that is what Nichiren Daishonin said. Now, let's talk about the three pillars, or think of it like that. If you think of it like a tripod, right? Some people are saying that, okay, I have a full faith, I do 3 hours of chanting, 5 hours of chanting in a day, but I don't get a time to, practice for others. I'm not able to challenge myself for home visits. Okay, I'm able to meet a lot of people, but when it's come to study, I am very weak in it. But idea is that think of it faith, practice, and study as the tripod. The tripod can only be balanced when all the three legs are at same level. Now, tripod can be shorter in height, tripod can be longer in height. That is basically mean how much faith you are doing, how much practice, and how much study you have. But all the three pillars, all the three legs of a tripod should be at same level. So you have to start allocating the work, allocating the time in such a manner that you are able to do all the three elements of Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism, that is around faith, practice, and study. So, what exactly I need to do when we talk about faith? What exactly I need to do when we talk about practice and study? Let's quickly deep dive into it. When we say faith, faith means belief. It means complete acceptance of Gohonzon, completely accepting Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism and Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. There are times in our life when we are challenging a lot of things, maybe financial karma, health karma, relationship karma. But whenever we are challenging any particular situation, we have to chant with a lot of faith and doubt that whether this chanting will work or not. Faith and anxiety cannot exist together. That is kind of a litmus test. Whenever you are chanting, whenever you are thinking about a situation and you are getting into doubt or anxiety, that means you have to work on the faith part. So faith essentially means belief and complete acceptance. And belief and complete acceptance of what? Complete acceptance of Lotus Sutra, Gohonzon. And this is the most important ingredient of Buddhist practice. No matter how much you practice, no matter how much you study, but if you are lacking of faith, then it is like, you know, you are missing out on the most important ingredient of the dish. The second element of our of practicing Nichiren Buddhism is to actually practice on a daily life. Now, practice basically means to have a consistency. That is what I meant when I said that maybe think of it like a tripod and all the three legs. It may happen that the tripod is shorter and smaller, and over the period of time it will gradually become longer. But it should not happen that some days you are doing 4 hours of chanting, 5 hours, and then you are not doing chanting at all for the next 10 days. So practice basically means consistency in our efforts and actions, and um, determined and solid efforts to transform and develop the lives. And practice has two elements. Practice has elements of practicing for oneself and practicing for others. When we say that we want to practice for oneself, so practice for oneself basically means with a lot of faith, chanting Namyo Renge Kyo and doing Gongyo with faith in front of Gohonzon, striving yourself to get all the benefits that you can tap through Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism. So when we chant Namyo Renge Kyo with faith and do Gongyo morning and evening in front of Gohonzon, we are personally striving to attain Buddhahood, absolute happiness. We are challenging our own limitations and targeting to get a personal benefits from Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism. So, in short, continuing consistently and continue to daily practice of Daimoku and Gongyo, polishing the mirror of our life and making it shine is the practice for oneself, and this is the primary practice. Now let's take 5 minutes and understand, maybe not even 5 minutes, 2 minutes to understand what is Gongyo. Gongyo is a recitation. So what we do in morning and evening, we recite a portion of Lotus Sutra. And what portion we recite? We recite second and the 16th chapter of Lotus Sutra. Expedient means and lifespan chapter. These two chapters are considered most important in Lotus Sutra. As Daishonin says, this is Gongyo is similar to a tarnished mirror that will shine like a jewel when polished. A mind now clouded by the illusions of the innate darkness of life is like a tarnished mirror. But when we polished, it is sure to become like a clear mirror, reflecting the essential nature of phenomena and true aspect of reality. So when we say we are practicing for oneself, it means we are chanting Daimoku on a daily basis and doing Gongyo morning and evening. Gongyo is nothing but portion of Lotus Sutra, second and 16th chapter, which are considered the most important chapters of Lotus Sutra. Now, we also talked about practice for others. So, what is the meaning of practice for others? Practice for others doesn't mean that you are chanting for other people. It basically means that you are teaching other people about Buddhism. You are helping them, assisting them to take on Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism and nurturing them to gain benefit from it. It's about sharing and spreading of the teaching. And it's not about that we are talking from the intellectual point of view. If it's about your intent, it is about your heart. When you go and meet members, when you try to do shakobuku, people are not impressed by your eloquence, but they are impressed by your intent and your heart, right? So it is the heart that is important. So practice for others essentially means when we are trying to spread Kosunbuku, we are trying to spread Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism, we are totally believing that whatever potential I have, the same potential is there in each of the other human beings, and I am trying to make them also capable, make them understand about digital Daishonin Buddhism, and teaching to the best of my ability. That is the meaning of practice for others. Now, why should I practice for others? That is a fundamental question, right? I am trying to, in the midst of all the challenges in my life itself, I am so much stuck in my day-to-day challenges. Why should I go after and talk to other people about Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism? Why? Because ultimately it all starts with me. So think of it like that. When I am practicing for others, ultimately this is I am deepening my own faith. When you go and talk about Buddhism, the kind of conviction with which you talk, ultimately it deepens your faith also. At the same time, you are removing your fundamental darkness. So what is fundamental darkness? Fundamental darkness is when we stop believing that the human beings, or I have a innate Buddha nature. When we start talking to other peoples about Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism, so essentially we are also accepting and acknowledging that the other person also has a Buddha nature. So we are challenging the fundamental darkness. At the same time, doing practicing for others essentially means you are actually going out of your way, taking out time and meeting someone. That cannot happen without compassion. It's not just about mechanical exercise, right? So when you start practicing for others, when you start introducing other people, so the qualities of Buddha in terms of compassion, removal of fundamental darkness, understanding that every person has Buddha nature, that all starts welling forth, and it deepens your faith, and ultimately you earn a lot of good fortune and change your own karma. That is the best way to change your own karma, when you start introducing other people. So practicing for oneself and practicing for others should also go hand in hand. Think of it like two wheels of a cart, bullock cart. They both need to move at the same pace parallelly, to make some sense of it. So this is about, we talked about practice, we talked about faith, we talked about practice for oneself and practice for others. The last but the very important element is study. We must study Buddhist teaching, we must study Gosho, we must study concepts of Buddhism. In fact, the entire intent of this exam is not something to make you a scholar, it's not something to claim that you have earned another certificate, but actually, this is kind of a milestone with the help of which you are getting a direction to study important Goshos and important concepts of Buddhism. Why they are important? Because when we start understanding the reason, when we understanding the aspects of the real life phenomena from the point of view of Buddhism, we start to understand why the things are happening and why and how should I take it up. Without proper study, there is a risk that we start doing our own interpretation of Buddhism. When we start talking to someone, or when we start introducing someone, we should always base our understanding of Buddhism not from our interpretation, but from the interpretation with respect to concepts of Buddhism, writings of Nichiren Daishonin, and this should make the base of our guidance, right? So all the three elements of are like a circular in nature. So one thing, if you have a faith, with the faith you start practicing. When you start practicing, you start challenging your karma and you start introducing other members. That will start, you will start receiving a lot of actual benefit in your life. When you start receiving actual benefit, that will also give you a lot of excitement to know more about Buddhism. That will lead to more study. When you study more, ultimately your faith will get deepened, and this is like a circular in nature. So if you have to close the loop, then all the three things should go in tandem. So that is the concept of faith, practice, and study. This is the how part, how I can attain absolute happiness in my life. So this is the concept. Thank you so much.